I believe Joey should be joining us here shortly. That was a great conversation. Joey, how's it going today?
It's going well, man. Thank you for making the time and thanks for having me
Absolutely.
here
Thank you
today.
so much
Really
for
appreciate it.
joining us today. Appreciate your
Yeah.
time. I'll just kind of give a little intro, and then I'll let you kind of reintroduce yourself, probably better than I do. So, Joey Arora, VP of Growth at the Outpost. You know, the Outpost is a boutique consulting firm. Joey helps companies win government contracts, especially in the defense arena. He's also an Air Force veteran, so thank you for your service. Uh, and has served as an airfield operations officer in the U.S. and Afghanistan, where he led innovation efforts and co-founded AFWERX. I apologize for that. That was a hard one to say. Joey, thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk more about how you can leverage non-dilutive funding to grow your company, but also to talk some more about what is dual use tech and why does that matter? Right. So there's a ton of opportunity to engage in growing a startup and leveraging non-dilutive funding. Before I get into that, I'll share a little bit about my background. I grew up here in Denver, Colorado, and by growing up here in Denver, I got to see a lot of time outside. I got to go to CU Boulder and did the ROTC program there, and it's really what started spurring my passion for entrepreneurship, seeing the businesses that are grown, seeing how people are making an impact in their community through the businesses that they run. So I joined the Air Force. I did airfield operations for the first 5 years, and the last 3-4 I got to be involved with AFWERX in the innovation space around the Air Force. Got to really help build that up. And one of the core theses we had in building AFWERX was understanding how do you help leverage dual use technology for the government, for the military as a whole, and recognizing that, hey, the entire landscape for technology has shifted in the last 20 to 40 years. You look at 1960s, 1980s, and the technology that was being developed, whether it was GPS, the internet, what NASA was developing, a lot of that money was coming from the government sector. You even look back further into history, and you'll see that the work of exploring the ships that were being sent to different places, those were funded by the larger monarchies as a way to expand and explore new places. And you'll see that throughout time, right, government was funding a lot of technology development. And in the recent 20 years, that model has flipped. There are commercial entities, and we're talking about organizations like Google, Amazon, SpaceX that are taking commercial money and pouring that into research and development of new technologies. So this model where new technology was the cutting edge, was led by government, has flipped. There's now $520 billion of research and development money going in from the commercial sector every year. And that far outpaces what's happening in the government side. So government is no longer the majority research and development funder for technology. But the cool thing is, right, there's still a huge pot of money that exists from the government side. About $30 to $40 billion a year is going out, being pushed out by the US government for startups to use. And it's a unique opportunity for companies that are saying, hey, we want to leverage R&D funding and grow our capabilities, to sit down and work with government to really flesh out those capabilities. So when you think about that, right, one of the things I want to talk about is dual use tech. So dual use tech is technology that can both be used in the commercial sector and in the government and the public sector. So as a company is building, whether it's a SaaS product or a hardware product or a medical product, there's often like, hey, we want to make a beachhead in the commercial market. Well, the work that's being done in the DoD and the Air Force side specifically is saying, hey, we also want to see you grow your technology in the commercial space, in the government space as well. So we want to see that, hey, you've done some product market fit in the commercial world. Now we want you to work with the government side, and we want to do a deeper dive into seeing how your technology can work with warfighters, how it can work in solving problems for the IRS or solving biotechnology problems with NIH. So there's a unique opportunity for companies to dive into solving problems for both sides and truly creating a dual use market. And in today's economy, this is a huge opportunity for startups to see that, hey, as budgets are shifting in commercial organizations, as consumers are being more wary of subscriptions or other larger purchases, how can you open up the government market? And that's what we're here to talk a little bit about today. So the next thing that I wanted to talk some more about is a little bit about the SBIR and STTR programs. The Small Business Administration, right, calls this America's Seed Fund. And that's because it truly is. So if you are a small business and you're looking for some non-dilutive capital, one of the first places that I would encourage you to look is with the SBIR and STTR programs. Those stand for the Small Business Innovation Research Program, SBIR, and the Small Business Technology Transfer Program, STTR. And these programs have led to some pretty amazing companies like Symantec and Qualcomm and Sonicare and 23andMe. Those are some of the biggest names that have come out of the success stories of leveraging SBIR funding. And that's at sort of the national level. If you look in the DoD and the Air Force side, there's companies like Anduril and Duralock and a few others, right, that are doing amazing things in developing technology. And they've been able to do a lot of that because of the money that they're getting and leveraging from the SBIR, STTR programs. So what is the goal of SBIR, STTR? Well, it's to meet federal research and development needs, and it's to increase the commercialization of technology. So if someone has an idea, this money is to further develop it, prove out that, hey, this is actually capable. You can actually make that happen. And we want to help drive that to commercialization. The SBIR, STTR funding is to help get that product further down the roadmap and continuing developing that capability and technology. The other goal of this is to stimulate that technological innovation, right? Government still wants to keep pushing the boundaries of technology development. And so this money is meant to be used on innovative technologies that are pushing the boundaries in all of these areas. Another key piece of this is SBIR, STTR programs are meant to foster participation and encourage growth of startups in all areas across the United States. And it is to also foster tech transfer from various nonprofit research institutions and help drive commercialization of that technology. So there's more and more opportunities for those companies to keep growing. So the cool thing is that the SBIR program is $3.2 billion every year that's going out to startups and small businesses. And the way that works is it's about 3.2% of any research budget for agencies that have over $100 million a year. And so the cool part about the SBIR program is there's over 11 federal agencies that are participating in this. And then for the STTR program, there's over $450 million that is spent on that. And so, like, hey, you're wondering, hey, these are cool programs. There's a lot of money. What do you need to do to qualify for these things? So one of the key things to think about is that, hey, you need to be a for-profit company, U.S. owned and operated, and under 500 people. And the work must be done in the United States. The work that you're proposing has to focus on research and development. And you want to be furthering the capability or the prototype of your technology. You want to further its ability to get to commercialization, your ability to sell that product. And so the goal is, hey, you want to further develop it. Where does that go? The SBIR and STTR programs are a 3-phase process. So phase 1 is the concept development. And these contracts last anywhere from 3 months to a year. And the contract values are anywhere from $50,000 to $250,000. And that is to really explore, hey, is it possible? Is it feasible? How are we going to do this? Is there a market that exists for this technology? Phase 2 is prototype development, and that's anywhere usually from 12 to 24 months. And it's anywhere from 500,000 to 1.5 million in general. And then, we talked about a 3-phase process. Phase 3 is really about, hey, it's commercialization, and it's saying, hey, you have a government stakeholder who cares a lot about that technology, and they want to spend their own money in acquiring that. So that's not SBIR funding. It is leveraging other government funding or, say, commercial funding to get after the development of that capability. And so, what is the difference between an SBIR and STTR? So the key thing about the STTR process is that it requires a nonprofit research institution to partner with and do at least 30% of the work. And so the way that looks is, right, there has to be a 30% minimum from that nonprofit research institution, whether you're going after your phase 1 or your phase 2. And the goal there is as you're applying, you want to maybe take technology that a university has and you want to commercialize that. So we want them to come in and be partners in that process as you're looking at, hey, how am I developing and growing my technology? So if you are a startup or an organization that's looking to take tech from a university and commercialize it, STTR is a great program for you. If you're a startup that has a business idea and you're like, hey, I'm ready to dive all into this, and we're already down this path, and you want to further grow your technology base, take a look at the SBIR program. Also take a look at the STTR program as well, because there might be interesting opportunities for you where you're like, hey, there's a patent or a technology that the university has that you can incorporate into the work you're doing and further make a more amazing product. So where can you go to sort of find these opportunities? Well, the cool thing is that the non-dilutive funding here is available from organizations like the Department of Agriculture, Department of Commerce, the DoD, and that's one I'm going to dive into a little bit more here in a bit. The Department of Education, the Department of Energy, Department of Health and Human Services, Department of Homeland Security, Department of Transportation, NASA, the Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, and the NSF, the National Science Foundation. So as you take a look at that, right, like, hey, you're wondering which ones are the biggest ones that we should go with. The DoD budget in 2019 for SBIR STTR programming was $1.8 billion. And a cool part of that is the majority of that is actually part of the Air Force. And so the Air Force has the largest SBIR STTR budget. And we'll go into what they're doing with the open topic here in a little bit. But then you can also take a look at the Department of Health and Human Services and the NIH. They come in second there with still over $1 billion in SBIR STTR funding. And, you can take a look online. There's still a breakout of the rest of the budget there in the hundreds of millions of dollars for the other agencies. And so the cool thing is that as you're going after these, there's going to be specific topics that you can apply to. And you'll see that, hey, there's technology areas that I can push and say, hey, this is a need from someone in government to continue growing and developing my technology. At the same time, the Air Force has now taken a unique approach with the Air Force Open Topic. I was super lucky to be involved with the amazing team of people that helped develop this. And it's super cool to see that, hey, the Open Topic is a door that any company can say, hey, I have an idea that could be applicable to the Air Force and the DoD, and I'd love to share them. And so the Open Topic is a way for a company that might not find a specific topic under the SBIR STTR programs to jump in and say, hey, I want to submit my idea and work with government on this. So if you're interested in saying you don't find a specific topic in one of the other agencies, but you think your technology or capability might be relevant to working with the Air Force, then that's where I would take a look at the Air Force open topic process. And you can find a lot of information about that on the AFWorks site. And so like what is the thesis behind the open topic, like proposing anything at all? Well, going back to what I was saying a little bit earlier, it's focusing on that dual use approach. It's about leveraging that commercial technology to deliver better capability to the warfighter. And it's about the Air Force created a simple open door that anybody can come in and share their ideas. And what this helps is it's about taking a national approach to security. We want to leverage the development of private capital. We want to leverage all of the R&D funding that is happening in the commercial world and take the best of those technologies and apply them to government problem sets. And so that's where dual use technology really comes in, and it helps de-risk the government's investment into new technologies. And so that open topic process is looking for those non-defense commercial solutions and to adapt those solutions to Air Force needs. And so what happens there, right, is there's a multiple step process from the Air Force side that there's the phase 1, phase 2, we talked about with the SBIR program. And that phase 1 for the Air Force is $75,000 and 3 months. And they're doing 2 of those awards in it 2 times in a year. They're putting out the solicitation. They're doing about 1,000 to 1,500 of those awards in a year. And that gives companies a foot in the door to say, hey, I'm on contract with the US Air Force to do a feasibility study, to do customer discovery, and engage on, hey, what are the opportunities to work with the Air Force? This is that phase 1 is really a 3-month contract for you to go in and do deep customer discovery. Find out, hey, where is the need for this type of capability? If you're coming in with the open door, right? You're saying, hey, there's specific areas inside of the Air Force that we can work with. Right? You might be developing a entirely new way to address PTSD. And so who do you need to be working with in the Air Force to help address those challenges, right? Which medical unit, which organization cares a lot about that problem? And how can you incorporate your commercial technology into the way that the government is approaching those? And so another great example, you might be developing a supersonic aircraft. Well, which program office inside of the Air Force cares a lot about supersonic aircraft? Is this for transportation? Is this a warfighting capability? Or, you might be developing cutting edge and new materials with titanium alloys. So which organization cares about that? Is it the hypersonics office? Is it the ground-based strike deterrent? These are the types of questions that the Air Force wants you to explore in that phase 1. And that's what you're getting $75K over 3 months to do. And so the cool thing is, right, you're like, hey, $75K, it's not that much. Why should I really be going after this? Well, the phase 2 opportunity on the Air Force side gets even bigger, and it's at $1.25 million. And this is a great opportunity for a company to say, hey, we have a prototype in mind, and we want to develop that out. So as part of your phase 1 process, you're figuring out who your customer is. You're figuring out who's going to actually care about buying this technology. You talked about, hey, if you're developing a new type of alloy, which is it the hypersonics program office that cares a lot about the development of this technology? Or, what product development is this going into? Which organization cares about how the product is being used? Where is it being used? And so that phase 2, you're going to need to find both a Air Force customer and an Air Force end user to share your technology with and lay out, like, hey, what is the prototype we want to develop with your Air Force customer and end user? So you're going to leverage something called a customer memorandum. And what this is it's signaling for that phase 2 prototype project that here are a list of milestones that we want to work with. And it allows the Air Force to see the project that you want to do, laying out the R&D portions of what you're trying to develop, and allows you to get buy-in from that stakeholder about what you're trying to create. And the cool thing about this is the Air Force is doing about 300 to 500 of these awards a year. They're allowing companies to go direct to phase 2. So if you are interested, like, hey, how do I work with government? How do I get started? You can begin some of those conversations on your own, even prior to phase 1, and find an Air Force stakeholder that cares a lot about what you're working on, and work with them to develop out those milestones and submit directly for this $1.25 million opportunity. So we're here in July. Actually, the next set of applications closes August 9th for the AFWERX open topic process. And the other cool thing is, they're going to keep doing this. So there'll be another solicitation later this year for that direct to phase 2 opportunity. And there'll be additional opportunities that'll be coming out for phase 1 and phase 2 next year as well. So if you're a company that's saying, I want to look at non-dilutive funding, I don't know where to start, none of those topics for SBIR, Sttr work for me, I would take a strong look at the Air Force open topic process and see, hey, is that something that we want to pursue? And, if it is, I'm happy to talk some more about that and keep engaging in that conversation there as well. But for companies that are a little more mature, I want to go a little bit deeper into another opportunity that the Air Force has, and that's known as the TACFI and STRATFI program. The cool thing about this is it's taking those prototype projects I talked about for phase 2, where it's a $1.25 million contract. And there's contract sizes for this for TAC5 for $375,000 to $1.8 million. And then for the STRATFI process of $3 to $15 million. And the amazing thing about this is that this is about leveraging the funding that you're getting for your prototype and saying, hey, we want to bring in matching funding, not only from the SBIR program, but your government customer to the table. And that government customer is signaling that they want to transition that technology to a program of record. And you're supposed to leverage the TACFI and STRATFI programs as a way to get into the government budget cycle. Especially on the DoD side, the government budget cycle there is planned out 2 to 5 years in advance for some capabilities, They know what they're going to spend. They know what the requirements are for the next 2 years. And in that time, you're like, hey, I'm a startup. I need cash in the next 3 to 6 months. I need to be able to close those contracts. The TACFI and STRATFI program is a great opportunity for those startups to say, hey, we're recognizing, hey, we're going to get some cash in the door now. At the same time, that government customer is saying, hey, we're willing to put a little bit of money that to fulfill this requirement on the table, and allows them the time to reconfigure, hey, what that future budget looks like. It also gives the startup a great opportunity to validate, hey, we've built this prototype of this technology and capability. Now we want to scale it across the enterprise. How do you do that for the Air Force, what's the capital that's needed? Is your solution actually going to work at scale? And so the TACFI and STRATFI programs really allow companies to go in and do that. I'd mentioned if you were a supersonic aircraft, one of the cool wins that came through this program was leveraging the STRATFI process. They got a $30+ million contract to develop the next generation supersonic aircraft. Excuse me. And the cool thing from this, it started out with a phase 1 going into a phase 2, and then really leveraging large dollar amounts of the TACFI and STRATFI program. And going further into that, the TACFI and STRATFI program not only allow for a match with government funding, there's also an opportunity to dive in and leverage private capital as a match to bring to the table. So if you're raising a round, or if you have a ton of pre-sales, you can count that towards matching funding for these larger Air Force contracts. And what that does is it allows you to bring to the table more funding to grow your capability, and get after a $15 million match, saying, hey, we have $15 million in pre-sales, or we have $15 million in venture capital that we're raising. You can bring that to the table and say you can get $15 million in non-dilutive funding through the SBIR program through the Air Force. And that is a huge opportunity to double the amount of money that your company is going to raise or that you've made in pre-sales and pour that back into that product development cycle. So it's a pretty awesome opportunity with the open topic process to take a company that has never worked with the government before, pitch an idea, dive into doing some feasibility studies, do a prototype, and then scale out and build out enterprise-wide solutions with the Air Force, and then open up other markets for you as you're developing for the Air Force. Now you get to go work and possibly sell across the Army, the Navy, the Space Force. And you also get to look at, hey, what are the other federal agencies that might want to leverage this capability or technology? A lot of tech that might be developed for the Space Force side, NASA might have a need for that as well. So what are those technologies that you can develop there that you can also look at and breaking in as a beachhead into other government markets? So the cool thing here, right, is if you're a dual use company and you're like, hey, we want to sell into the government space, there's a ton of opportunity in building dual use tech, leveraging SBIR Sttr funding. So a couple other things I wanted to cover was about like, how do you build a winning government proposal, right? Many of you are like, hey, this is a process that takes hours and hours and it takes hundreds of pages of submission. Sometimes it does feel like that there are a lot of requirements in the government proposal process. The open topic process, I'd argue, is one of the better ones that is out there, and it's reshaping this sort of entire industry of how do you leverage R&D funding. The open topic process is a 25-page slide deck that you have to submit for the open topic process. The phase 2 is a 15-page white paper. And it's a awesome opportunity as a company to say, hey, we want to share technology, we want to share commercial traction, and we want to share what the government need is here. And it's presented in a way that, as you would be engaging for a pitch deck or selling in the commercial world, here those same modules and questions are included in your government proposal here as well. And then if you take a look at some of the other SBIR programs, or if you're submitting another contract opportunity, it might require a 50-page response to some of that work. But the thing is, you're not alone in that process. There are a ton of resources out there to help you decipher and understand how to work with government proposals. And if you're looking at building a winning government proposal, some of the key things to think about are, one, you want to read the full solicitation, right? They're going to have specific requirements on the format, on the evaluation criteria, and you want to make sure that you are replying to all of that. So let's dive a little bit deeper into the evaluation criteria side. If you're going after that non-dilutive funding, there's going to be a set of criteria that the government actually has to lay out prior to putting out that solicitation. So a unique advantage is, unlike the commercial market, you know what you're going to be evaluated on, what they're going to grade you on and say, hey, is this a good proposal or not? So you can specifically answer those things in your proposal. I'll dive into the open topic one because that's the one we help create and build. And it's also one that we can look at, hey, there's 3 main criteria. It's the technical development, it is the defense need, and it's the commercial viability. So when you're looking at the technical portion of what you're doing, it's really asking about, hey, what is the technical capability of what you're creating? What are the specific, are you developing time travel technology, or are you developing something else, right? Like, hey, you actually have the ability to develop a new titanium alloy, and you've shown that, hey, the science can work behind this, right? So it's that soundness of your technical approach, that you're actually developing something that is not fanciful, but it's something that it's hard science and say, yep, this can actually be done. And that the SBIR Sttr program's quick side note here is that it doesn't only apply to hard technologies. It can also apply to developing a new process or developing new software. Those are all things that are covered under the SBIR Sttr program as well. So, as going back to the criteria piece, that on the technical merit side, right, show that you can actually develop that technology, and what does that look like? Then on the defense needs side, you want to specifically take a look at, hey, who in the military, like what is the specific thing that they're looking to solve? Why is it relevant in today's day and age, right? Are you developing hypersonic capabilities? And is that the cutting edge of what we're doing? Or, hey, are you improving the heat resistance of material by X amount? Are you developing new software that allows for us to leverage AI and ML in the future and take a look at, hey, what are better ways that we defend our network? Or how are we managing the data across all of the programs that the Air Force does for an ISR, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance? So really define that defense need to very specific, even down to the individual level. Say, hey, these are the people that care about this problem, and this is the mission impact that it will have to the work that they're doing. And maybe you don't know that for your phase 1 process as you're getting into this, but that's happy to help decipher that and work into that with you, and we can have a follow-up conversation there. But it's really about doing some of that research as well. Like, you're not selling, hey, I want to sell to the Air Force as a whole, but here's a specific problem set inside of the Air Force that you want to get after. And then the last big evaluation criteria, right, is the commercialization potential. And so this is where you really want to show what traction you have as an organization. And you want to be able to say, hey, we've sold $300,000 of this particular product. We have X amount of downloads or X amount of subscriptions and active users to what we're building and developing. So as you're taking a look at what is happening in your criteria for commercialization, you want to really go down to the traction, like the specific numbers, like what is the traction you've created? And what happens if you get this R&D funding? How is that going to improve your commercialization for the work that you're doing? So it's a pretty awesome opportunity as you're looking at evaluation criteria for this non-dilutive capital to look at the specific words that are being used in the evaluation criteria. Make sure that you're putting in those answers into your response. Make it easy to read. Government proposals don't all have to be a blank 12-point font and just text. Make sure you put in graphics. Make it easy to understand. So if I was the one evaluating it, I know that, hey, this is someone that has professional opportunity. The R&D is going to move the needle in this specific way. And this is the impact that it's going to have if it was selected. And that even applies to all the specific topic opportunities. And you want to make sure you're answering all of these questions in plain English as well, right? There's a lot of opportunity to dive into the super technical pieces, and there's a space for that. But up front, answer these questions very specifically and very plainly in your response. So, big thing of what we covered here today was understanding, hey, what is dual use tech? And that is, hey, dual use tech is about leveraging capabilities that are both sold in the commercial market and then can also be sold to government. And the best companies, I would argue nowadays, have the opportunity to sell to both. And you can be a high growth company that's selling commercially and be opening up the DoD market and the government market as well. There's tons of opportunity, over $3.2 billion of non-dilutive capital through the Sbir Sttr program. There's 11 different agencies that are covering that, and you can work and apply to all of those. We talked about the Sbir Sttr program and specifically more about the Air Force open topic process, that the open topic is a great opportunity for any company that wants to get their foot in the door. A super cool portion of that is if you win an Sbir Sttr contract, you have sole source opportunities to work with anybody in government. And so it's a huge benefit to say, hey, anyone can now come directly to you for that solution. We talked a little bit about customer discovery with the Air Force. What does that look like? Who do you need to talk to in terms of, hey, you want to make sure you're targeting a specific program office? And you want to be asking those honest, direct questions about, hey, what is the opportunity you see and how do you get there? And then we talked a little bit about building winning proposals and how to engage in understanding the evaluation criteria. And so as you guys are looking at the government space, if you want to jump in and you want to understand how do you get after some of this opportunity that's out there, feel free to ping me on LinkedIn. Feel free to shoot me a message at the Outpost. We're happy to help you out and help you understand how to navigate the government space. We do everything from business development to proposal writing, and we've had amazing success over the last few years. We've helped over 200 companies win over $300 million in government. And so it's a great opportunity to jump in, encourage companies to check it out. And Javi, I'm glad to see you that you're back. Happy to jump into any questions or closing comments.
Thank you so much for that, Joey. I really appreciate that. That was awesome. That was very informative. I definitely have a few questions for you that I'll connect with you offline. But if anyone in the audience has any questions for Joey before we sign off for our midday break, Joey, while we wait for some questions, where can people connect with you online?
Yeah, absolutely. So with the outpost.cloud is our website. And the other place that I check out, right, is you can look for me on LinkedIn, Joey Arora, and put my email and content here in chat, joey@theoutpost.cloud.
Awesome. I don't see any questions, so maybe I'll ask you a question while we wait. Here we have a few more minutes left. As far as for someone that's never done this, wanting to apply for some of this non-dilutive grant, can you I don't know if you can give some tips and tricks, throughout, is it like an application process, an interview, and, what does that process look like? And what are your best practices or strategies for someone to successfully get that funding?
Yeah. So a majority of these are actually written application, right? So there's not really an interview process for this. So what you want to be doing as you're getting after these, you want to be very specific in your responses of hey, I answered the evaluation criteria. You want to show what is the technology that you're building and how does that tie back into research and development, right? This is the Sbir Sttr funding is not for already developed products, but it's about pushing the boundaries further in those technology areas. And you want to identify a champion inside a government or a program that this is truly going to have an impact on, and be able to succinctly describe what the value is to that program and have a champion inside, right? Building those relationships with people who care about that technology.
That's great. And so with the applications, sorry, I'm not trying to hog, just trying to fill in some time while we wait for some questions to roll in. As far as these written response, is there a maximum of how much a company can get per year? I mean, is it, is there different funds, or is it just typically that one fund that you mentioned that they have $11 million, I believe you said, for
3.2 billion available in the
Okay.
SBIR Sttr programs, right? And then you can get multiple awards through the Sbir Sttr program. So key thing is, right, you can't be paid for equivalent work, right? You can't be paid twice to do the same work. But if you have a lot of ideas and technology that you're developing, you can get multiple awards from multiple organizations to keep developing it. But a key thing to remember, right, and companies are going to be evaluated on is, are you taking any of the money that you're getting and actually commercializing that product? Because a key goal of the Sbir Sttr program is to see these technologies being developed and continuing to be sold in the commercial sector as well. It goes back to the idea of hey, we want dual use and we want to see companies be successful commercially.
That makes sense. Yeah, helping them accelerate sounds like as part of that process. Cool. Well, it looks like we're at the end of the conversation time mark. So, Joey, thank you so much again for joining us today. That was, again, very insightful for me. I took a lot of notes. Thank you. I'll connect with you offline. Everyone else that's joined us, I'm going to let Joey go here and bring back. Oh, looks like we have one question. If you have some time, Joey.
Yeah. How long does it take to engage and work towards submitting a proposal? So I'd say that's normally a 2 to 3 month process. So at the Outpost, we do a minimum 3-month engagement because we want to understand your company and we want to understand what is the opportunity and build those relationships as we're going through the submission process, not only with the company and the technology, but also with the stakeholders that you're looking to work with and helping them understand what those opportunities are as well.
Very cool. I hope that answered your question, Alex. Thank you for that, Joey. Appreciate it. Again, connect with him on LinkedIn. And then will you be sharing your slides with our audience, Joey?
Yeah, I can. I can send you guys some things afterwards and we can go from there.
Sorry, you didn't even have a presentation. What am I saying? I apologize for that. Can we get your contact information? I'll connect with you so we can kind of share it with everyone.
Yeah.
And yeah, check out Joey's company, The Outpost. If you're looking for more information on how to get some of this funding, they've won a lot of great contracts, and I'm just helping a lot of companies succeed in that space. So Joey, thanks again. I hope you have a great rest of the day.